Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right. Uh-oh.
What?
Here we are at Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Wait a minute. We're implies multiple personalities.
Episode number 194.
Jesus.
608 to 200, and I don't have the jingle written for the
Jingle
new
written?
jingle. I told you we were going to change the jingle at 200.
We're not talking about
Pressure's
that.
on.
We're not talking about that until I can come out of my cave and go to my friend's house to record. We're just not talking about that.
Episode number 194. This kooky idea is like giving free, reliable money to you monthly.
Oh, you mean like the stimulus package?
How is that title?
Don't get me started. It's too late.
Peter came in 20 minutes ago. He hasn't stopped talking since he got here. Obviously, being alone hasn't been helpful, has it?
Oh, no, Bill, I've not been alone. I'm exhausted online doing my job. It's just exhausted. But, yeah, people home are, yep. Somebody's on the phone. Yep. Sure.
The kooky idea. This kooky idea is like giving free, reliable money to you monthly. What am I going to give you today at a price? What I'm going to give you today is at a price even a street bum rattling a cup with a couple of nickels in it can afford.
Jeez, I got a really hot picture of a heavy. Oh, man.
So you could possibly point your compass to the exact location of the vault with your fortune in it.
We've been practicing being a writer. I mean, look at the picture you're painting and the vault and the wow. Keep going.
To kick things off, I'm willing to reveal this real estate strategy in detail this one time so I can shamelessly bribe you with the idea and keep you coming back for more. But first, I have to warn you, this strategy doesn't have much to do with real estate, but instead the paper that controls these deals.
Oh, that one, huh?
I often tell others, the money is in the money, not in the real estate. And today, I'm going to break this down for you as if I were virtually apprenticing you to give you free, reliable money to you each and every month. And I'm happy to announce you don't need a long, complicated education to pull this one off. In this episode, I plan to divulge how to turn your mailbox into an ATM each month. Peter's eyes just got big and wide. He's paying attention.
Mailbox ATM.
Best part is, I've been doing this for over 10 years, while history's most powerful and influential have been doing it for thousands of years.
Yeah, true.
I got your attention?
Yeah, my eyes are kind of bugged out.
So, which part?
Well, people talk about, I want to be a real estate investor. So we should go around saying, I want to be a contract investor, paperwork investor, option investor, something investor. And they go, what? What the hell is that? Sit down and explain it to you.
In episode number 136, we're on 194. In episode number 136, how to make 12 profits from flipping one house, I talked about the pretty house business and the ugly house business, right?
Yeah.
And the pretty house business has 12 profits. So I'm going to run through those real quick so there's not a mystery here. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's how we're going to start off. And these are just the like synopsis of each one. I'm not going to explain them because that's what episode number 136 does. And if you're curious how to make 12 profits from flipping one house, you should go listen to that episode. Mm-hmm. Okay? 1, get a non-refundable deposit within 30 days. It's a profit. We call that money now. 2, get an elevated price for monthly payers. So in other words, if somebody can't get a mortgage now, like if I were to sell you my $2,500 Mac computer right now, right, for $1,000, and you paid me $1,000, you would get a discount because it's a $2,500 computer.
That's cheaper.
It is a $2,500 computer. I can show you the receipts.
Yeah, right.
Right, and it's still worth that because Mac holds the prices, right? But if you said to me, I want to give you the $1,000, and you put it on your credit card, swiped your credit card, and paid for it monthly over 24 months, you're paying more than $1,000, right?
Sure.
So that means that monthly payers pay more or pay a premium price for property. So that's in the profit center. Okay? Number 3, get monthly cash flow from your payments. These are profits that you make, right? Number 4, get additional deposit money monthly. Right?
They're putting more deposit down for the future purchase.
So let's say their rent is $1,500 and they put an additional $200 or $300 a month towards their down payment money.
Yeah, so when they buy it later down the road, they have more money up front.
Yes.
Yeah, less mortgage.
Maybe instead of having, $10,000 down, they only had 6 or 7, and I'll take monthly payments until they can get to the point where they would be mortgageable.
Yeah.
But that's still profit for you because it's your equity. You're collecting you're pulling your equity forward.
And even if you gave you the whole $10,000, they could give a little more, couldn't they?
Absolutely.
Just to get more towards the down payment.
We do that with jumbo mortgages because a lot of times what happens is you get a jumbo mortgage, $700, $800, $1 million. They have 10% down. We make them pay extra so they can get up to the 20% because in a jumbo mortgage, if you don't put 20% down, you're not getting approved.
Yeah, that's really pretty conventional. But FHA mortgages can be just 3%, 5% for some people, right? And it's not always 20% like we always think. 20, it can be less.
Yeah, but FHA has a limit on how much they'll lend.
Right. You want a biggie house? You give me more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're at number 5 now. Get the tenant to pay maintenance and repairs so you save money. That's a profit center for you. Right? Number 6, get equity by paying the mortgage with the tenant's lease money. So get equity by paying. So every time the tenant pays, they get the use of the house and you get to pay down your mortgage. Okay? Number 7, depreciation with tax savings.
Yeah.
Right. Number 8, appreciation, not depreciation, appreciation, which I don't ever talk about, but values usually raise more than they fall.
Right.
In real estate, which is why real estate is such a great investment for so many people, because usually real estate appreciates more than it depreciates. What's the definition of success? Definition of success is do more right things than wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's what this is. Real estate is a successful business because it does more right things than wrong. In other words, it appreciates more than it depreciates.
Right.
Okay? Number 9, mortgage interest is tax deductible. Right? Number 10, often 1 out of 3 lease option buyers will cash you out. Okay, 1 out of 3 lease option buyers will cash you out. So you have a good chance to get 2 or 3 deposits.
Well, that's right. If it doesn't work out, don't worry about it. You get to work some more and make more money.
Yeah, which is why we use 7-year terms, 7-year agreements, because you put them in there for 2 years. If it doesn't work, it takes you 2 or 3 months to get them out. You put another one in there. If that doesn't work, so each tenant buyer, you're calculating a 2-year lease and 2 or 3 months to get them out and put a new person in, which gives us 7 years. Right? Because you would do 2 years, 2 years, 2 years is 6, and then you use the other year to get them out and put them in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buffer time.
Yeah, and that took a lot of checks written and a lot of mistakes to figure that stupid number 7 out.
Sometimes
it's crazy. I went years without doing that, and it was like, duh, why don't I just do this?
You get so busy just handling what the heck's going on now. Sometimes it's hard to look forward a little bit. What if? And there's not what if right now, but what if tomorrow? But eventually you sort things out.
And to just take a side note there, a left turn right there. I don't know if I could ever get fully understood on this by anybody unless they've done it. And I've not met that person yet just because I don't I just haven't had that conversation.
Yeah.
But it's very, very, very difficult to put a third eye on yourself when you're in the middle of working, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the middle, like right now, you know, we have this whole virus thing going on, and businesses, I mean, we're in Connecticut, they shut it down. I mean, I go out at night, you know, I get in my car, and because I want to have a cigar, so I'll just go for a ride, and I'll drive around, and it's like Christmas. Like, everything's shut down.
Yeah, Christmas,
everything's shut
Christmas
down.
when people are in the houses, not shopping.
Right.
The other end.
Christmas Day. It's like Christmas Day. You know,
Yeah.
Christmas morning when you go out, everything's shut down.
And all the driveways are filled with cars.
Yeah.
They're not empty. They're all there.
You know, it's spooky.
Yeah.
So how do you put a third eye on yourself when you're worried about how am I going to make payroll, how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that, and all the pressure's on you,
Yeah.
right? How do you put a third eye on yourself and say, oh, here's what I got to do? That's not so easy.
No.
And then to like really dumb it down and make it simple. And that's why, you know, it took me years to figure out, oh, let's just do 7-year terms. Mm-hmm. It seems so simple when I say it now, but you got to realize that it took, who would even think that until you went through 7 years worth of deals, or two of the 2-year or 3-year terms, because we were doing 3 years and 5 years.
Yeah.
And then people wouldn't pay. They wouldn't get their mortgage. Now we're like, oh shit, now what do we do? You know, because now you tell somebody, you told your seller you're going to give them a 5-year term, and you use 3 or 4 of the years with a bad tenant. Now what do you do? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So we didn't even know we had that problem until it started happening. Sure. Now I so easily say to you, oh, do 7 years because it's 2, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you don't put any credence or you didn't have to go through the sweat and the gun to my head with the mortgage payments like I did. So it seems like a simple thing to you.
Sure.
You know, so it's like I just learned to like live with myself on that stuff, because you have no idea. The things that I talk about are my real life history.
You've been through it. I mean, all discoveries come from some kind of pain or some situation, and you know, how did a dam show up? Well, one day there wasn't any water, so hey, maybe we should put a dam there anything.
I decided the other day that I have a new image of myself. I do. I decided I have a new image of myself.
Okay.
So what was his name? Rockwell?
Norman Rockwell, the painter.
He painted. What made Norman Rockwell so famous?
I saw his paintings in his museum.
Yep.
And
in Massachusetts.
And seeing them live was amazing compared to the stupid pictures in magazines that don't do it any justice.
Okay, so what made him
famous? Because I saw it, to me, was that the pictures looked really homey and personal and loving family, like America stuff. Right. That's what I got. What do you think?
So it's not the painting. It wasn't that he was a fantastic painter, because that goes without saying. It's 100% what you say. He took real live instances in his life and turned them into art.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what happens to me, is I've taken real live instances and I paint the picture so you guys can see that, and it's art. I mean, you were the one that told me that a year ago. Like it's like that I'm like some sort of an artist, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, but when it comes to this stuff, I am, because I take real life incidences and I put it in a picture that you could see, so that you can enjoy it or at least be aware of it. Anyways, right?
Well, art is creative.
Yeah.
You're talking about creative financing, so
totally,
I mean, it really connects.
All right, good. So back to this. So mortgage number 9, mortgage interest is deductible. Number 10, often 1 out of 3 lease option buyers will cash you out, so you have a good chance to get 2 or 3 deposits. Number 11, and I was going to bring it. I forgot to do it. I was going to show it off for the Facebook users. Escrow funds once you close. So I just had a closing on one of my properties, which was actually, believe it or not, the closing was for the property that I made the how do you buy real estate without a loan course. That property, she got a mortgage and I closed on it.
So you have the beginning, the middle, and it ended.
And then you have an extension, which is the escrow money, which I got a check for $1,500.80, I think it was.
So you had the money in escrow?
Well,
for taxes and insurance?
I don't know where it came from. It probably came from the seller when they originally took the loan, because banks will make you pay forward.
Right.
You know, like the 3-family we just bought, we paid forward for the taxes. So the taxes are already, they're 6 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they try to get you to pay forward, so they're not chasing you to pay the tax bill. They're always ahead one tax payment.
Yeah.
So they're usually ahead, right?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I didn't pay it. I just continued to pay it by making the payments every month.
Yeah.
But I got an additional $1,500.
Okay.
Which is a profit center.
You betcha.
Because I got that check on my desk, and I'm going to deposit that in my sweet little bank account.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Make sense?
Oh, sure.
Good. And by the way, I'm not buying lunch today.
I brought cash.
Yeah. Only because I don't know where we could buy lunch today, because everything's closed. All right, number 12. I have multiple times discounted, and I don't talk about this much because it sounds cruel, but honestly, it's not. I've multiple times I've discounted the seller's notes when I get ready to pay them off.
Mm.
Like, for example, I had a property in North Haven. We owed the girl $78,000. I was willing to pay her 2 years early or 3 years early, and asked her if she would take $40,000, and we settled for $43,000. Right? Then I turned around and refinanced the property and got the money from the bank. So I had a note with her. I reduced the note, we'll say by $30,000, 30 something,
35.
yeah, 35,000. And then I turn around and I refinance the property, and I got the 35,000 in cash.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a profit center.
Yeah.
But I have to realize that my lawyer, her lawyer, everybody was involved. This was not some 2
o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, like we're holding a gun to her head, telling her she got to take less money because everybody was willing to do this. The English saying is, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Right. So that's money. It's in time value versus money. Yeah. Right. Is another. It's a formula, an actual calculated formula.
That's true. Money now. So she could take that money you gave her and invest that and make that much money even.
Or for her, the fact that she doesn't have to wait for the money. It's actually the same amount of money as if she waited. Right. So I'm getting very technical on this, but I just want to prove that this happens all the time. In the car business, we called it the 78th rule.
The what?
78th rule.
Okay.
And it's actually a formula on doing math. If you pay early, what the time value money was worth. There's an actual formula. If you Google it, 78th rule. I think it's 70. It might be 76, but I think it's 78th rule. There's an actual mathematical formula on figuring if you pay early what you would pay.
Right.
Okay. Now I want you to know that if you do that calculation, I always take liberty to put a little extra in there for Bill.
Right.
But that is a way.
Well, I think the basic idea is that money grows. Totally. Money just plain grows.
Right. It's supposed to.
Yeah. And in the long run it does, or it just keeps up with inflation, but it looks like it grows. Anything. Right. But the other thing is, I know some of these people, like I have a guy that I bought the condo, right? It's been paid off for years. So now everything is profit for the guy. So I purchased for him, and if I did this type of thing with him, I might give him less than the overall amount, but I'll give him a big chunk.
How long have you been in that deal with him?
It's 3 years now.
Okay, so how long do you have to take the note?
It's a 10-year note.
Okay, so how much do you owe him?
At this point, I'm down to $35,000.
I'll bet you $100 that you can call him up and say, "Will you take $10,000?" and he'll take it. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
exactly. I was thinking I'd wait till like the 5th year I'm in the middle and do something.
Do it now, especially now with the way money is.
Yeah.
With the market kind of a little bit sketchy. I'd start at 7 or 8. Would you take $8,000? I'll pay you off. I just had a closing on another house. I got some extra money. All I have is $8,000. Can you take it? And I bet you $100 he'll take it.
And from what you just said a minute ago, check this, folks. I was thinking, well, I don't have the $7-8,000 now. I just paid a ton of bills off. I have the money, and I'm hanging on to what I have. But I could get that money, pay him, and then take an equity line on the property, can't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I could get it back and pay a little interest on it
for more than $8,000.
Yeah, and I can get more out of it.
Because at that particular point, you're paying off an $8,000 mortgage on a property that's worth $75,000 or $60,000.
Yeah, 60, 70, sure. Yeah, that's been in the back of my mind, just waiting a little time to go on, get the bill down, and then do something like that.
All right, so we need to move on because I'm spending way too much time on this. So the last one, which is a bonus, is substitution of collateral.
Is that what there's 3 walnut shells on a table and there's a pea under one?
So I almost didn't want to do this, and now I regret doing it, but I'm going to just do it.
Why, because I said that?
No, because I didn't know it was going to take us 20 minutes to do all those. So I was supposed to just read through them in 5 minutes and not explain them all. So basically, substitution collateral means that I owe you $100,000. And I call you up and say, Peter, would you take $60,000? And you're like, no way. And I have the house sold. So I'm going to get the money. I'm going to have to pay you off.
The whole $100,000.
Yeah, because you're saying no to the $60,000.
Okay.
So what I say to you is, Pete, would you be interested in putting that $100,000 that I owe you onto another house that's worth more money?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're like, yeah, well, you keep making me payments. Yes, I will, because some people don't want the money. I go buy Emma's house for $200,000. Now I closed on your house, and I have the $100,000 on my bank account. I take the $100,000 and I go buy Emma's house with it.
So you're just reinvesting it.
And all I'm doing is I'm taking your name off of your house and putting it on Emma's house as the lien holder.
Yeah.
So it's called substitutional collateral. It's a big profit center when you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. The guy lent you money. You keep investing it for him.
Right.
Keep making him more money.
So in that episode
The 136.
136, I gave a 62% discount on attracting motivated sellers, so you can find these people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, yesterday, when I was writing the podcast, I went and reset that coupon.
Okay.
Because I know I was going to be talking about it today, and I don't want people to go to that episode number 136, and it's like, oh, we're giving a 62% discount, and then you're sending me support tickets saying, can I get the discount because it was so long ago? Because the coupons are dated.
Yeah.
So I reset that coupon, so you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right hand side, hit courses. You're going to look for attracting motivated sellers. When you get to the payment page, it says, do you have a coupon? You would put in there podcast 136 and then hit apply, and the discount will show, the 62% discount will show immediately in front of your eyes before you check out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I don't get in trouble, because in that podcast we talk about getting a discount for that course.
Don't be an Indian giver.
Yeah, and today, like I said, I reactivated that, but I don't know how long it's going to be. But just go, and worst case scenario is if you're listening to this podcast, 6 months after we made it, then just send me a support ticket, and I'll give you
we'll do it again.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
So now you have 2 podcasts that people can ask for discounts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consider this Bill's stimulus package.
Yeah. But all this is not what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to elaborate on number 6 of the 12 points, which is why I'm bringing it up, which is get equity by paying the mortgage with the tenant's money.
Okay.
That's what I want to talk about today. That's how we're going to turn your mailbox into an ATM.
Bill, I'm doing that, but it comes on my phone.
Yeah, I know.
Cha-ching! It does.
Peter.
It does. I'll pull up. I'll show you. Cha-ching!
So what I want to talk about today is elaborate on the principal reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because most people consider principal reduction from an amortized mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning amortized schedule means that if I borrow $100,000 from you today and I pay 4% interest, when I make my first payment, some of that money is going to interest, some of that money is going to principal.
Mm-hmm.
If I reduce the principal this month with my payment, next month you can't charge me interest on money that I've already paid.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a new split between the interest and the principal.
Right.
Right? And then the next month after that, there's a new split.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the amortized schedule is the mathematical formula of how you're going to make your 360 payments for a 30-year mortgage, how much is interest and how much is payment on each payment.
Right. And usually always the principal goes up a little, the interest comes down a little bit as it goes.
Except we all know that I'm a dumbass and I don't like to do all that work. So I'm going to show you what I do, okay? So, and it's actually, believe it or not, this is an ancient secret, and this is not some marketing thing. It's an ancient secret that mainstream real estate guys don't want you to know. Okay? You can actually overpay significantly for a piece of real estate and make money if you know how.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. I had a property, which I do on my deal structuring. I keep using the same numbers because then it makes it easier for everybody to connect the dots. I had a property I bought for $260,000. That was worth $230,000, maybe $240,000. I paid $260,000 for it and sold it for $260,000 and made $84,000.
So 260 minus 260 equals 84.
That's a great calculator, isn't it?
I love your math, Bill.
Yeah.
Some creative crap going on here, folks.
Yeah.
What? Go. What?
Now, before you tell me my calculator's broken, because I put that there because I knew you were going to do that.
Or where can I buy your calculator?
Or I should put on a straitjacket and let me, because you guys think I'm nuts. Let me explain what I'm talking about. First point is the house I was buying was a free and clear property. Okay. Now you could do this other ways. I'm not going to explain that today because it is a little bit complex and I don't want to do that. I'll do that in my coaching group. If you get in the coaching group, I'll completely explain it to you and give you all the paperwork to do it. But for now, to keep it easy, let's just talk about it's a free and clear property, which means it has no mortgage. That's what free and clear means. There is no mortgage. There is no, there's nothing on the property. There's no liens.
Yeah.
There's no encumbrances. There's nothing. It's free and
it's
clear.
free of a loan and it's clear of any encumbrances.
Yeah.
Right? Free.
Yeah.
And, okay.
So
Yeah, they're out there about 30%.
I was just going to say,
Yeah,
34% of our country, this great country that we have, this fantastic country. And if you don't think our country's great, look what it's going through with this pandemic.
Yeah.
Look what's happening.
And I swear to God, I've talked to people that complain how terrible it is. Well, I'm sorry, go look at other countries and then stop, really, please stop.
I mean, we are light years ahead of. I mean, I heard the other day the president's administration, the doctor talking about how in Korea it took them 8 months to do what we did in 8 weeks. I mean, it
hasn't been there 8 months yet.
Whatever it is.
It was a long number.
Yeah, it was whatever it was.
Yeah.
We did it like in half the time, or a third of the time.
Yeah.
All my point is that the way I think this country is great is that if you look at all the businesses that are donating and helping one another, and it is truly a free enterprise. They're trying to take it away from us, but it is truly a free enterprise. And so I really, when I say this is a great country, I really, really believe that.
Yeah.
I am very happy. I've traveled outside of the country and choose not to because my wife wants to go to Europe. I mean, she would give up many things for me to go to Europe with her, and I just have no desire.
Yeah.
I love this country. Okay.
Well, how about this? How many people pour into our country as opposed to other countries, and then complain that it isn't good? Well, it isn't. It is good. That's why you're coming here. Yeah, nothing's perfect.
So 34% of this great country is free and clear. 34%. 34%. I think it's really 36. I was conservative, but I think it's 34%.
Well, I own 2 of them.
Yeah, 34%. Right. Yeah. All right. So the Kooky idea I spoke of in my title for this podcast is, and here you go. This is the punchline, and then we're going to talk about this. Okay. Giving the seller more equity and no interest on payments. Okay, that's the Kooky trick, is you overpay, but you give them the money and equity instead of interest. So here's what I mean by this, and here's the reason. In most cases, sellers don't have to deal with capital gains tax.
Right.
In most cases, seller doesn't have to deal with capital gains tax. So what is capital gains tax?
Well, capital gain is when you increase the amount of profit you've made in an investment. That's capital. That's money you're taking in.
Let's just make it simpler. You have $10,000. You put it in on a piece of property. So your capital is 10 grand.
Yeah.
It's now time to sell, and you get 20 grand back.
So you've gained.
So what is your capital now?
20.
So it gained $10,000.
Yeah.
That's taxable.
Yeah.
The original 10 grand is not.
Yeah, that was your money in the first place.
Unless you probably paid it on how you originally got it, which could have been your job and you saved it, or you had some other investment or something. But the original 10 grand is not taxable because you already own it. You've already paid taxes on it more than likely.
Right.
They can't double dip.
Yeah.
They try to, but they can't.
No.
Okay. So in most cases, sellers don't have to deal with capital gains tax because of today's tax laws, right? Unless the property is like an investment property. Like in your particular case, you probably don't know this. Maybe you do. But if you went and sold your house right now, you would have to pay capital gains tax.
Because
you've been living in your mother's house for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only live in one house at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not living there, it's considered an investment property.
Ooh, back up a second, though. The house that I'm living in now, my mother's house, when I sell that, I won't have capital gains.
Right.
Because I'm living in it.
Right. But
Ooh, that's good.
But if you sell your house,
yeah,
you would have a tax.
Right. I thought you were
especially if you're renting it.
Well, I run a business out of it. Does that make it any worse?
Yeah, I'm not a tax attorney, but yes.
I thought that's where you're headed, but it's because I'm not living there.
Yeah, it's because you're not living there. So
my wife still has it as her permanent address.
That's fine. Yeah. That would be fine.
That's cool. I can sell the one I'm
sure there's a loophole, but what
Yeah,
I usually what happens when I sit in the house is they left the house to go buy another house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They become accidental landlords. Can you give this to Emma, please?
Sure.
I don't know what the hell's going on, but my phone is blowing up. So what happens is you leave the house, you go into your new house, you become an accidental landlord and rent it.
Mm-hmm.
What most people do not understand is their tax ramifications on that property just increased 38%.
Because it's now like a little bit of a business investment.
So now they're sitting in the house with me and they're talking about selling their house, thinking they're going to get this profit. Mm. So if they think they're going to get $100,000 profit, subtract $38,000 from it right away for the government. Mm. And there ain't no way around it.
Yep.
Okay. So,
but you have ways.
So in most cases, sellers don't have to deal with the capital gains tax because of today's laws, because they live in the house. But if they don't, then it's just what we're talking about. So that means if you give them the extra $30,000, like I gave in my $260,000 property, they get to keep the $30,000 if they live in it. So if the house is worth $230,000, I pay $260,000, they get to keep the $30,000. They're not going to pay tax on it.
Why? Because it's more than it's worth? Why? I missed that.
Because there's no capital gains tax because they live in it.
Okay, what I missed is I thought they weren't living in it. I missed something.
No, in this particular case, what I'm saying is most cases the sellers don't have to pay capital gains tax.
Yeah.
But I wanted to clarify that there are some cases where they do if they don't live in it.
I got you.
In this case, most people live in the house that you're buying. Okay, or they're not rented. Mm-hmm. In this case, I paid $260,000 for a $230,000 house. I gave them an additional $30,000. They don't pay capital gains tax on it. Mm-hmm. Okay? If you were to pay them interest, let's say 2 to 5%, right? Because that's what current rates are right now.
Sure.
They keep fluctuating. And this whole thing where they say they dropped interest rates down to 0, that wasn't on mortgages. That was on everything else but mortgages. Mortgages actually went up, to be honest with you, because they're worried about foreclosure rates.
Yeah.
If you were to pay them interest, we'll say pay them 4% interest. All right. Here's what happens. A couple things happen to the deal. Mm-hmm. First, it forces the seller to pay the taxes on that amount. Okay. So in this case, on a $230,000 house, it's about $6,000.
The interest.
Yeah, actually it was about $6,800 or $6,900, but it's about $6,000 on a $230,000.
Yeah.
Per year.
Yeah.
Now, grant you, that was on 3%, by the way, not 4%, on 3%. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's about $8,000 on 4%. Okay. So here's the point. They have to pay taxes on that. Now, granted, as you go, the $6,000 will go down to 52, 57, 50, whatever.
Yeah, but add that all up.
Right. So if they were to charge 5%, they would have to pay taxes on $11,000 per year on $230,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So whatever their tax rate is, they're paying that amount of money. Okay. That's a significant amount for your seller. They don't think of that when they're talking about interest. It really means he or she is not getting all the money. If they're on the average tax bracket, they'll only get about 70 or 75% of that interest, right? So let's say they pay 25% on the 65,000 on the 6,000 for taxes. That's about $1,500.
Sure.
Right? A year they don't get. Right? Without counting the cost of the taxes. The accounting of the taxes. Having the accountant and doing the taxes.
Oh yeah. By the time you
now let's just do simple math here. So that's $1,500, right? That they don't get. Right? So 4,500, let's say $4,000 times 5 years is how much?
20.
I gave him 30.
So I've done the same type of thing, but so overpaying more than compensates for the interest they're not getting.
That's what you're supposed to do. It doesn't work that way on all deals, but that's what you're supposed to do. Is you're supposed to reward them for waiting for their money. Okay. Now. We better get to this because we got a few people that are like stabbing themselves in the eyes with ice picks because they're like, what? You can't pay all that money? Well, believe it or not, you can, and you can pay more. Okay? So let's go back to my Kooky idea, right? Suppose I paid $260 for the house and I made principal-only payments. That's the way of saying no interest. You have to be careful when you're telling that to your seller. You have to tell them that 3 or 4 times, and sometimes you just have to say, I'm not paying interest. Because they don't get principal-only payments means no interest. Okay? Honest to God.
Yeah.
I actually, and I know this because my coaching clients will write this in their proposals or their offers, and they'll get all the way to that point, and the customer will be like, oh, they didn't get it. They'll talk to them 5 times, and they don't get the principal-only payments means no interest.
Maybe they don't know what principal means.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You just need to make sure that they're clear on that. In other words, no interest. Instead, you give the seller the extra $30,000. You need to make sure they understand that. So, if I owe the seller $260, this is not a trick question. I want you to answer me. You know the answer. If I owe the seller $260 and I make a $1,000 payment, how much do I owe the seller now?
Give me a minute now. $259.
And I make another $1,000 payment. How much do I owe them?
Crap! I knew this would happen. $258.
Right.
Door number 1.
Okay, this makes sense now, right? So every time you make a payment, you're reducing the principal.
Yeah.
It's not like the amortization where I was talking about it, where you're paying some interest and some principal.
Yeah, but are you going to tell them the big crazy part of this? Because you're not.
I'm getting there.
You getting there?
I'm not sure what the big crazy part is, but let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. Now watch this. If I make $1,000 per month payment to the seller, okay, and I have an agreement with him that I could pay up to 60 months. So if I'm paying $1,000 a month for 60 months, how much is that? Or 5 years?
See, 60 times 1,000. Give me a minute here.
$60,000.
There you are.
Which is 5 years.
5 years, $60,000.
So we've paid him $60,000. So now we owe him $200,000 after 5 years, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Now hold that thought because now I want to move ahead just a little bit so it starts to get clearer. Okay. Now let's say our tenant buyer is paying us $1,800 a month for the rent.
Sure.
Okay. On a $260,000 house, that's actually pretty damn cheap.
Oh, hell yeah.
It should be like low twos, $2,100, $2,200. But let's say he's paying $1,800. Okay. First thing to note is that the rent is the rent, which means the tenant gets the use of the house or the occupancy of the house for his money. He doesn't get principal reduction.
He owes $260 when he bought it, and he still owes $260 as it moves forward.
All he's doing is paying for the use of the house, the occupancy. There is no rent credits. I get asked that question all the time. There is no rent credits.
It's not layaway. It's not.
There isn't any. There's no law that says you have to do that. When landlords or sellers are doing that, they're doing that under false pretense or false data. You don't have to do that. That's just a marketing ploy to get the house rented in bad times. That's what landlords do or sellers do to get people in the houses when the houses aren't selling. Okay, it's a marketing ploy. So he or she, meaning the tenant, gives me $1,800 a month. I pay the seller $1,000. First thing I do. Then I pay the tax man $300. Okay. Then I pay the insurance $100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Leaves me with $400 a month. Positive cash flow.
Cool.
Okay. So I pay $1,000 plus $300 plus $100. So that's $1,400 a month, and I'm getting $1,800.
And the renter tenant paid all of that.
The renter tenant gave you the money. That's right. Now you multiply the $400 times the 60 months, gives you $2,400. I'm sorry, $24,000.
Yep.
Okay. Best part is after 60 months, the buyer still owes you the $260 because he or she was paying rent.
Yeah, they haven't bought the house yet.
Right. And you were using that money to pay down the mortgage. Okay. So the seller gets a loan for the $260 at the end of the 5 years.
The buyer.
You're right. The buyer, yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. So the buyer gets a loan for the $260 and he closes. All right. Now you only owe the seller $200,000.
Right.
So at the closing, you're going to get a check for somewhere around $60,000 because the sellers owe $200 and the buyer's giving you $260. Right. Which leaves a $60,000 check with your name on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, you made the $24,000 on a monthly profit. So 60 plus 24,000 is $84,000.
260,000 minus 260,000. This is like Common Core. You had a long explanation to get to the 84, but I liked it.
Was it clear?
I understood.
Good.
I mean, it's not common everyday knowledge, perhaps, but it's, people wind up in situations where they want to sell the house. You're giving them more. Some people want to buy the house. They can't yet.
Yeah,
They'll give a little more.
Nobody's getting a disadvantage of them. Okay. Here's the reason why. Let's just let me see here. Let's take my $1,800 payment and take the taxes and insurance off of it. So how much is that? That was $300 for taxes, $100 for insurance.
$1,400.
So it's $1,400, right? So if we take $1,400, which is principal, which normally would be principal and interest on a loan, right, times 360, which is 30 years, you would pay $504,000 for that house.
Yeah.
When I'm in seminars, I do that. Like, how much did you pay for this house?
Yeah.
They'd be like, I paid $260.
No, you didn't.
You paid, because if you take the $1,400 and multiply it by 360, which is your principal, and I'm telling you, $1,400 is a very low payment on a $260,000 mortgage.
But that was the actual payment on that house?
I'm just saying, if we,
but I know this is a real.
there's no payment because it was free and clear.
That's right. So. Okay.
So what I'm doing is just reversing the math on a low point. I'm telling you, it's low. Yeah. Probably the mortgage, the interest in principal is going to be more like $1,800.
Yeah.
And then you pay taxes and insurance on top of that.
On top of that, sure.
Right.
You can find that on a mortgage calculator in two minutes.
Just in Google, right? But my point is that if my seller were to sell to my buyer and he went to the bank and got a loan, he would pay $504,000 at the end of 30 years. Okay, I'm only charging him $260. Right.
But he is getting a mortgage then later on.
Yeah.
And that's back to normal then.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking advantage of anybody.
And my point is, when I look at these, the guy was renting someplace else because he couldn't buy a house. So now he's renting now in a house that he's going to buy shortly.
And I'm helping him get approved for a mortgage.
Yeah, he could stay in that apartment the rest of his life or move that apartment money to a house apartment money.
Right. And have the chance of closing.
Yeah, and he's in a house.
Right.
That's not terrible.
So there's a lot of advantages to the seller. There's a lot of advantages to the buyer. And there's, of course, a lot of advantages for us. Everybody wins. Nobody's getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
In this particular case, it's all transparent because they could see that you filed a deed for $260,000 and they paid $260. What are they going to say?
Yeah.
Most people don't have the initiative or intuitiveness to use a calculator and actually do what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So they don't even know you're making money. They're wondering how you're making money. They think you're making $400 a month. That's what they think. Okay. All right. So that was clear, right? Good. I need to clear a few things up for the experienced investors, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, the math I just used was for example purposes. Because really what would happen is you would have money now, money monthly, money later. So I made a comment a little bit earlier in this podcast that you probably didn't get. So I want to explain that. As I said, you pulled your you pulled your equity forward. You pulled your equity forward. So I want you to get that statement. You pulled your equity forward. The way you do that is if I were to take a $10,000 deposit from my buyer, how much does he owe me now?
Really only owes you $250.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, but I figured let you go. You'll get to it.
So I make my monthly cash flow at $400, but the money later is only $50,000, not 60, because I took my deposit money now.
Sure.
I'll give you another example.
What's wrong with that? That's even better.
Yeah. So I'll give you another. Well, like I said, a bird in the hand is better than two in a bush, right? Yeah. So I'll give you another example. I have a subject to rate deal I just did, right? And I broke my own formula, which I do often. I don't talk about that, but I do it often. If you know how to do it, it works good. So I paid $191,000, which I've told you guys this before. I paid $191,000 for a $180,000 house. Actually, it's a $170,000 house because it needs repairs. Okay. I sold it for $2,099. So what's the difference between 191 and 2,099? So let's do that.
18?
209.
Let's see if the mind is faster than a calculator.
Minus 191. 16.
What?
No, 161. What the hell did I do?
No.
209.
Well, 191 to 200,000 is $9,000, and then you sold it for 209. That's another 9. 9 plus 9, 18.
18,900.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got $19,000 profit. Okay. I took $12,000 down for down payment. So I pulled my profit ahead.
Right.
So I'm only getting $7,000 on the back end. But I'm getting $750 a month cash flow.
After all the expenses, you still have $750 left over.
Actually, it's $770 or something like that, because my mortgage is like $993 or something. So $750, we'll say times 24 months, that's $18,000.
Yeah.
So plus I got $12,000 at the closing, so I got $30,000 upfront money. Plus I still have another $7,000 on the back end. So I overpaid for the property because it didn't cost me any closing costs. It was like I didn't have to get a mortgage, nothing. I just signed my deeds.
That's right. It was subject to, so it went straight from you to the new buyer.
I broke the 80% formula I tell you guys about, but that's because, and you should go watch the
videos?
eReam. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top corner courses, go to eReam. I think we charge $7 or $9 a month. That's where I do my monthly meetups. The board behind us is how I do structure deals. The last month, because of the virus, we didn't do it. We did it virtually, and it was one of the most amazing meetups I've ever done. We structured two deals from the audience. But I did it on my whiteboard in my office, and the whiteboard is like, 8 feet long?
Yeah, it's big.
And I was able to lay the whole deal out on a board instead of just a small piece of paper like I normally do at the meetup. And because of that, you can see kind of like my mind map, right? My point is that when I evaluate a deal, I use money now, money monthly, money later all the time. And when I can juggernaut those numbers around, right, I opted to not, because money later to me it's a card term, it's a derogatory term, but it's on the come. In other words, it's coming later, right? So the on the come money is how I used to structure my deals. That was like my first foot forward, like on the come, because we're taught that the way to make money with real estate is to buy low and sell high, and the equity is the profit. And it took me several years, 3, 4, 5 years in the beginning. I had literally, I think, $3 million or $2.5 million worth of real estate when I realized that the money on the come was bullshit. The real money is the cash now and the cash flow.
Oh, bird in the hand,
Right. But it took me multiple houses, and payments that were like swinging $2,000 or $3,000 a month. In other words, I would make $2,000 or $3,000 one month, and next month it would cost me $2,000 or $3,000 because something broke or something happened, somebody didn't pay, blah blah blah, right?
But you're in the real estate business.
But I had all this real estate, and I had this fake money that I couldn't pay my electric bill with. So again, I'm a dumbass. I had to learn the hard way, So when I'm telling you money now, money monthly, money later, it's from, I have scars from these lessons. I mean, I've laid on the battlefield bleeding to death, and somebody dragged me off the field and I recovered. It is that way. It's how I really feel about it. Right. So when I look at this subject to deal and I look at, okay, money now, $12,000. Okay, good. Money monthly, $750 a month. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, look at
money later is $7,000. I'm not crazy about that, but why should I not do the deal because of that? So that's why I break. That's why I break the 80% rule that I normally teach you, that you shouldn't pay more than 80%, because the other two-thirds of the formula outweighed that.
Yeah, well, you have so much more upfront than at the back end that there's no guarantee on, but $12,000 in your hand, that's $12,000 in your hand, and money coming in every month. Geez, with $700, you could take out a home warranty for $500 and have the home kind of warranted. That something breaks, you'll fix it with that in 1 month's payment.
That's right.
It's just something like that. What if something breaks? Get a warranty.
Yeah.
And now you'd have to worry about it.
That's exactly
it's just
right.
as simple as that.
Yep. So just because we're talking about this deal, and I think we have a little bit of time, but let's break that deal down a little bit further, because I'm not telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So I originally had closed them for $10,000 down. Figured I had $10,000 in the back.
Yeah.
They said, oh, we only have $7,000. Now we have some money coming from a lawsuit.
Okay.
Which I don't normally take in consideration. But I called the attorney, spoke to the attorney. Yes, we're in the final stages. We're just settling. Okay, I think we'll get the money fairly soon. Okay, so here's what I do, just being me, okay, is I go back to them and say, okay, here's what I'm willing to do. I will let you move in for the $7,000, but you have to pay me $5,000 within 90 days. So, did you get the math? Because $7,000 minus $10,000 is only $3,000. So they originally paid $10,000, but by not having the money now, I not convinced them. I told them they had to pay me $5,000 later.
Well, one thing I learned from you is if something loses to the left, you gain to the right, one way or the other.
Right.
They want more term, you want more money. They want less term, you take whatever. You just juggle the two. So that if you feel you're being inconvenienced, you say, well, in that case, you got to do this for me, just to feel like you're not being taken advantage of.
So that's how I got the $12,000, is because I had to wait 3 months for the $12,000, and I'm not worried about it because I've already secured where the money's coming from. Right. Worst case scenario is if they don't pay me the $5,000, they default the entire contract and they get out, and I got their $7,000 because it's in the contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm safe all the way around.
Yeah, if they leave like, oh, isn't that terrible? You get to do it again and keep the $7,000.
Okay. Now, before I end off, I want to talk about one more last thing.
Good.
Okay. These free and clear sellers. This is important to talk about, because there's nobody going to tell you this. Nobody's going to tell you this, because I learned this. I still learn this lesson. I still haven't fully gotten my degree on this education. Okay? Because I still fall into the trap. And so will you. Okay? So these free and clear sellers are not easy to deal with. And here's the reason why. They've been paying this house off for most of the time about 30 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes longer. So this is kind of like a Christmas fund like my sister does. Every month she puts money into an account, and at Christmas time she has the money. Right? So she pays monthly for 12 months, and at the end of the 12 months, she goes, grabs the cash, and goes Christmas shopping like a wild banshee.
Christmas club.
Yeah.
You're talking about my wife. Christmas club.
Totally, right? So very often your seller is treating their equity like a savings account. So they've been paying their mortgage down, and then all of a sudden one day they have this big fat savings account worth $200,000, $300,000. Now, more often than not, over a 30-year span, because remember what I told you the definition of success is, you do more right things than wrong. So that means that real estate has more appreciation than depreciation. So over the course of the 30 years, they have had more appreciation than depreciation.
Right.
So they paid $100,000 for this property that is now worth $300,000. So not only did they pay off the 100, but they got an extra 200 on top of it.
Right.
So jackpot, ding, 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 ding. The bells are ringing. Okay. Now here's what happens. All of a sudden, something in life shifts. My daughter wants to go to college, and I got to pay it off. And I'm in this house by myself, and I don't need 4 bedrooms. Right? Light bulb goes off. Decision made.
Cashed it in, baby.
They think that they're going to actually get in the car, go down to the bank, hand their passport to the teller, and they're going to give them $300,000. That's what they think. And until you do this, you're going to be maybe a little critical of my explanation right now. But I'm telling you, honest to God, after sitting in thousands and thousands of houses, and God knows how many of these types of houses, because I couldn't even begin to count, this is what you're going to see. Right? So most of the time, they have no clue of what it costs to sell a house. All they know is they've spent 30 years in a ditch somewhere digging dirt to get their paycheck so they can make their mortgage payment. Which, oh yeah, by the way, when they bought this house, that $800 mortgage payment was huge because they only made $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I love that. My house mortgage used to be $245.
Yeah. And when you took that mortgage, you were wondering how you could pay it back then.
Okay, yeah. It's always like, you'll manage. But you look back, every year it's like, every year it gets smaller and smaller, doesn't it? You look back, well, I'm sure glad we did that.
So they have no clue how much it costs to sell or how much it is worth and what they need to get that imagined check. They have no idea of the obstacles that they're about to run into. So there's a common statement. You don't know what you don't know. What that means is you are completely unaware of what's going to happen in front of you. Right?
Yep.
Like, for example, you decided you wanted to go on a boat ride, right? And you prepare by putting extra gas in the boat, and you bring food, and you bring water and suntan lotion, just in case the motor breaks, right? And you get out on the water, and you get struck by lightning.
You forgot your lightning rod.
You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. You didn't know that you could get struck by lightning, so you didn't prepare the boat to be struck by lightning.
Sounds a little familiar with what's happening in society, in our country, in the world right now.
But it's a good analogy, right? Like you prepare for if the motor
prepares for what's happening right now.
Right, exactly.
This is crazy.
Right.
I can't buy a laptop. I can't buy a camera. It's all gone. I can't buy toilet paper. It's gone. Who expected this?
Thanks for the rant, Pete.
Hey, I get my shot once in a while.
Okay, so they don't know what they don't know. These high equity sellers. Okay, so what I'm telling you is these deals are not the average monthly deals you're going to be making. Right? You will be doing some of these deals, but if you do 1 or 2 a year, you're in good shape. Okay, because these sellers aren't going to just turn over their savings account to you and want to reinvest it. A vast majority of the time, you're going to find that they have a decision, right? Let me back up for a second. There's a rule in real estate that most people don't know. We do not talk about it enough. And it's actually one of the basic laws of real estate. The only reason why you sell real estate is because you need the money. Now, I have clarified there's another reason why. Mm-hmm. The other reason why is because it's become a liability and it's costing you money.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, so most sellers look at their house in one of two ways. And that's where this datum comes from, is this deal structure.
Mm-hmm.
They either see their house as an asset, in other words, something where they put money into it and it grew.
Yep.
Or they see their house or a house as a liability, which means it costs them money. So assets make you money. Mm-hmm. Liabilities cost you money.
Yeah.
Right? To keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
That, by the way, is a Kiyosaki comment. Mm-hmm. He's the one that I learned that from.
Okay.
Robert, right?
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
I think it was in Cash Flow Quadrant. Great book to read. Okay, mm-hmm. Cash Flow Quadrant. So it could be a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's in one of those two books. Those are the first two books he wrote.
Yeah.
So assets get you money. Mm-hmm. Liabilities cost you money. Mm-hmm. So this seller is in the asset column.
Uh-huh.
Right? They're trying to get their money.
And they may not have a huge problem.
So when I say the only reason why somebody wants to sell their house is because they want their asset to be moved to a different location.
Mm.
Right? So, or they just want their money to pay off a college tuition. Maybe they want to go move to Italy and they want to retire, so they want the cash in the bank so they can live off of it, worry free. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had people that have operations. They're on their deathbed and need to be operated on, and they need the money. There are so many different reasons why someone would make a decision that they want the cash.
Yep.
Okay.
True that.
Very seldom you're going to run into a free and clear owner that feels his property has become a liability. We do best with terms deals when we find the seller that has the outlook or viewpoint that it's a liability.
He's got some pain that we could help with.
Right. So it's costing him money one way or the other, or aggravation.
Yeah.
Right. Like probate, or I don't know, they're divorced, they're living in two different houses, they have two payments.
I bought mine because of a bad tenant.
Yeah. Right. There's so many different ways, but when you break the business down that way and you look at, does this guy see this house as an asset, or does this guy see this house as a liability?
Mm-hmm.
You'll know what to do. By the way, realtors sell the asset properties. The people that have assets will go to a realtor because that's what realtors provide. That's what our realtors system does, is it gives them the cash.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous cost to that, but they don't know what it is. It's a hidden cost of 13 to 15% or 12 to 15%. They don't know that when they sign up.
Yeah, but they find that out the day before the closing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So,
but those are, to me, easy sells. The house is kind of nice. It's in a nice neighborhood. The price isn't terrible. Right. Somebody comes along and buy it. It's easy. So for that ease, you pay.
Right.
If you want the easy way out, you pay. If you work a little harder, if you wait a little longer, if you do some more work, you get more money. That's just life.
Okay, so let's just say you're a dressmaker.
I'm a dressmaker.
You make dresses.
Okay.
Okay. You know how to make the dress, but you don't know how to distribute it. So you make a deal with Macy's, and they sell your dress. Would you agree or not agree that Macy's is probably going to make more money off of that dress than you?
Probably.
Because they knew how to find the buyer and connect the two of you. That is a realtor.
Yeah. Oh. That's an interesting comparison.
That is a realtor. They were able to go find the buyer, aka their MLS. Back in the day they had better ways, but now it's just an MLS, multiple listing service. Right? MLS, they put it on the MLS, they find you your buyer. That's what they're paid for. Most people think they're paid to consult them and walk them through the deal. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
They're paid to buy it. So they have the dress. They know how to get the dress. They know how to take care of the dress. They know how to,
They've paid for the dress.
They paid for the dress, and now they want to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so most people that want to sell their house and cash in on their asset will go to a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the guys with the liability or see their house as a liability or it is a liability can't always get the realtor to fix those problems for them sometimes fast enough. The realtor is not decisive enough. The difference between us and a realtor is we'll say, I'll buy it, we'll close by next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
A realtor can't promise that until they have a buyer, and even then it's a third-party promise, and they can't always say, and a fourth-party promise because the seller's saying, yeah, I'm approved for a mortgage, and the mortgage guy is saying, yeah, he's approved for a mortgage, and all it takes is one little hiccup, like right now, and blows the whole deal up.
Yep.
Okay, so there's too many, it's too much on the commons we're talking about, and too many promises that have to be made. Okay, so that's the difference. So a little bit of diversion there, but you have to realize that most of the free and clear sellers are going to be in that asset column.
Sure.
So they are not going to be on every street corner. They're not going to be easy to find. They're not going to be super vulnerable for this type of deal.
Flexible.
Right.
Is that one of the reasons you pay more? Does that help?
I was just going to say, so what I have figured out is, and I learned it from this strategy, I talk about it all the time, what I have figured out is that some sellers have horse blinders on. You know what that is?
Yeah, the horse has two shades on the horse on his eyes, so if he's running in a race, he doesn't see all the other horses scaring the heck out of him, so he just focuses on running forward.
Right.
But he just has his eye on one thing.
Right. So your description is very good, except I thought it was when they were in the fields, they put horse blinders on so he would walk straight and not walk any other way because he was distracted.
That could be too.
I think the horse racing came later.
I bet that's true.
I don't know that. I'm just assuming that. But the point is that the horse has shields on both sides of his eyes, so he can't look left or right. He just has to look straight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I lost my train of thought.
The owner has one thing in mind. Is that the part where he just has his eye on the money?
Oh, I got it. So what happens is some sellers have these blinders on, and all they want is their number.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They're not looking at how they're going to get the money. For example, you could have an owner that has a $180,000 house and he's trying to get $200,000 for it. Most sellers, until they've been humbled by the market, okay, don't take in consideration where is the buyer going to get the money from. They're just thinking about what they want, what they need, what motivates them. They haven't made it a two-way transaction yet.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't realized that the transaction has to be two ways. It is a buyer and a seller to make it happen.
They haven't been in sales, have they?
Right. So what I found is that these sellers that are locked in on their number could dig their heels in for some time. I've seen them try to sell properties for 3, 4, 5 years because nobody's come along and offered them their price.
That's crazy, that long, and we would have bought it at the beginning at that price, and they'd be done by now, 4 or 5 years later, huh?
So what do you do with somebody that's stubborn?
Don't argue with them, just go along with it?
Or me, I like to inject the offer with some steroids.
Uh-huh.
So if he can't sell for 200, I'll get his attention by saying, how about if I give you 210? Now he feels right. Now
he goes, honey, I got a sucker on the line.
Right. Okay. So that brings me to my last thing. All right. That walks me right into the last thing here. So how much can I overpay for the property? So there's two answers. One answer is I try not to do more than 10 or 15%. Okay. just stick with me here, because if I don't do a good job with this, I need you to reel me in, okay? Because I'm definitely on Bill's planet right now. Mm-hmm. So I could pay 10 or 15% more.
Right.
Or I could pay 50% more and make it up in time.
Right.
So the real question is, how are you going to exit?
Right. The limiting factor is you have to sell it eventually.
Right. Because the bank is going to want to appraise the house.
Right.
So the object is this. You have your price, we'll say, on a scale of 1 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
No, on a scale of 1 to 150.
Mm.
Right? You're at 150, but the house is only worth 100.
Right. So the bank won't give a mortgage, will it?
For 150.
Yeah, why would they're
on a scale of 150, right? They'll only give the mortgage on 100.
It's collateral. It's not good enough collateral.
Right.
Okay.
So they're afraid that if they give you the money, then they're not going to be able to get paid back, because who else is going to pay the 150 other than you, because you're a rarity.
Yeah. If anything happens, they're stuck with a house.
So what you need to do is you need to pay down that overpayment of 50.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, let's just say you're paying $1,000 a month. That means you need 4 years of 4 years of $1,000 a month to pay down that 50. So at year 4,
mm-hmm.
you're equal.
Right. But the buyer, in your normal scenario, still has to pay that full amount, because you don't give them principal reduction, right?
Well, sometimes you do.
Because in this case like this, you would have to do something like that.
Well,
no?
sometimes I might sell, and I did this deal with Jesse once. I might sell the house. I might pay $150, but sell the house at $125.
Okay, you pay. Oh, I got it.
I promised to pay $150.
Yeah, you don't have to sell for what you paid for.
I promised to pay the seller at $150.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sold it for $125 or $130.
Right.
So it looks like I'm losing $20,000, right?
Yeah.
What I do is I put a longer term on it and tell my buyer that there's a prepayment penalty. If they pay me off under the 4 years,
yeah,
they have to pay $10,000, whatever the difference is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what I do is I put them in there because, by the way, the guy that just got repossessed, or the guy that's buying this house and been living with his mother-in-law with 4 kids and a wife, and their kids in the wrong school, do you think giving him a 10-year mortgage or a 7-year mortgage or a 5-year, not a mortgage, a lease, is going to be happy? Because that's a lifetime for him.
Yeah, you'd think they don't want a long one because they're waiting too long to buy the house, paying too much rent. But he's in a kind of a rough situation where he needs a little time, and he was in a worse situation, so it's an improvement.
Right. So what I'm saying is if you play with the numbers like I'm playing with now, which is very hard to illustrate on a podcast,
mm-hmm.
but if you play with those numbers, there's 2 numbers. There's the payment number and there's time that's connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if I pay $150,000 for a house, I could sell it for $125,000. So how many months do I need before I? So I need 25 months if I'm paying $1,000.
See, I didn't get the part that you could sell different. I didn't think of that because usually you sell what you buy for, but
right.
It's it's 2 different numbers, a buy and a sell. You can do what you want.
So that means I would go 2 years. I would put some sort of a prepayment penalty on this. Matter of fact, I would go more because I want to get some profit.
Yeah.
Right. So I might tell the guy, okay, so you got a 5-year lease and you can't pay me off for 5 years.
Yeah. So the first 2 years catches you up, and the next 3 put you ahead.
Right.
Wow. I think there's a reason this is called creative financing.
So, but in the meantime, you got a seller that's been getting offers of 100 and you're giving him 150. So going back to my original point is I swelled his greed glands. I stuck steroids in the offer. I shot this I got his attention because here's what happens. This is the rule. I don't know. I didn't make it. I just figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The guy that's stuck on price, that's the front door. If you walk around to the back of the house and you went to the house in the back door, you make a lot more money because there's two ways, and this is how I figured this out. This is exactly how I figured this out, is in this deal structure. When I was doing these offers, this is how I figured it out.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time now, but I figured it out at this exact point. There's only two ways to make money with real estate. Buy low, sell high, or cash flow. So if your seller's getting all the equity and plus, then you need to make your money on cash flow. Because what's the formula? What's the mathematical formula for doing a deal? Money now, money monthly, money later. So in this particular case, if your owner, now pay attention to this, okay? Because this is freaking huge. It seems so simple, but it is freaking huge. So if I look at the formula and I sell a $125,000 house for $150, I paid $150. I sell it for $125. It might be worth $100. Okay, I'm just saying. All right, I'm not even 100%. I'm just saying that could be the scenario.
But I think what you're explaining is whatever you do, calculate that the buyer has to go to the bank and get money, so the numbers have to work.
Just hear me out. Okay. So what happens is you sold the house for $150. Your buyer will pay that.
Wait a minute. You bought. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry. You bought it for $150. Right. The buyer will pay $125.
Yeah.
Okay. If you sold it and bought it in the right margin and paid $100, we'll say, how much of a down payment are you going to get?
Wait. Say it again.
So if you bought and sold it in the conventional way, like what the house was worth, and you were to sell it, if you were to buy it for $100 and sold it for $100, how much of a deposit are you going to get?
Like if you're dealing with banks,
say $5,000. No, not dealing with a bank.
Just a deposit.
If you were going to buy this house for $100,000,
you got to put 3 or 5.
So we'll say 5% is $5,000.
Yeah.
Right. So now if you sell for $125,000 times 5%, where's the percent button?
6250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more of a down payment because it's more of a house.
Right. I don't know why the calculator's not working. So the point is you just made another $1,200 or $1,500. Money now. Okay. Now watch this. If you were to buy and sell that house at $100,000, and now it's $125,000, how much is your payment going to be? Because the payment's going to be based on what? The $125,000, not the $100,000. So instead of getting $1,300, now you're getting $1,500 or whatever the number is.
Right.
So your money monthly.
Right.
The only factor that changes is the money later, and you're going to get money later. You just got it later's a lot later.
It's the term.
Right.
Right. You just stretch the term to increase.
So in my world, why wouldn't I do that? Because I increased everything. I increased my money now. I increased my money monthly. And I'm going to increase my money later. It's just that I have to wait a little longer for it so I could sell. So I could induce the seller's greed glands.
To me, it's like money in the bank or nothing at all. Because if you don't do this with the deal, you can't do the deal.
Right.
Now, what would you say to somebody asking about who's going to come along and pay that kind of money? What would you say to that? Like as a buyer in a deal that's a little over leveraged, if they're worried about a buyer coming along, what would you say?
He's there.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. Because when you advertise, because at this particular point, here's what happens. Okay? At this stage of the game, when you're this far into dealology and deal structuring, because we just studied the deal and we're making a deal structure from it, right? Dealology means the study of the deal or the knowledge of the deal. Okay? When you're this far into the deal, you're not selling the house anymore. You're selling the financing. So part of your formula, which is so crucial, money now, money monthly, money later, is how much do you have to pay for that monthly payment? Okay. Now, here's the amazing thing, and I'm way off track, and it's way too late to be doing this. That's why I invented the MAP formula. MAP like roadmap. MAP. That's maximum allowable payment, because when I started making these offers, well, what happened in the beginning is I was just pulling numbers out my ass on how much I would pay every month. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm only making $85 a month on this deal that I thought was super cool.
Right.
So what I do is I take the number the income, which I figure out what the income is because on a $125,000 mortgage, I go on a mortgage calculator, I put in $125,000. I don't take any deposits from it or anything. Take a whole number of $125,000. I put in a mortgage calculator, which you find on Google, at 4% or whatever the current market interest rate is, and I do it for 30 years. That's your principal and interest.
Yep.
I add my taxes, my insurance, and my HOA fees to it, and I add $200 minimum.
Yep.
And the reason why I add the $200 is I tell them it's for the big fat landlord. Now I'm a big fat landlord, so people can, say that. Maybe you don't want to say the fat part, but that's just the way it is, right? I'd
be the old guy.
Yeah. So the big fat landlord is making $200 a month off you, and I tell them that when I close with them. And the way that you're going to get away from paying that $200 is to go get a mortgage and reduce the mortgage. Yeah. So it's an incentive for them to pay less.
Well, who would rent something to break even anyways? Right. Nobody does that. Everybody charges more than it costs them. So it's called business.
The point is your income is that number. So you take the mortgage, the principal interest for 30 years, you add the taxes, insurance, HOA fee, plus 200, that is your income. So the MAP formula starts with that number.
Yeah.
So you take the income, multiply it by 85%, minus the taxes, minus the insurance, minus the HOA fees. That's your maximum allowable payment. The 15% that you're multiplying in the beginning is your vacancy factor, and that's it. So when you say your maximum allowable payment, this is just like the Mayo formula, maximum allowable offer. You could pay that amount, but your profit isn't that big. So let's say I have a $1,500 a month payment, and my MAP formula came out to be $800. The most I can pay is $800. I do not start with $800.
That's the most you can pay for this to the seller.
I don't start with $800. I might start at $500 or $600 because I'm going to want to get a couple $100, $200 a month positive cash flow. Now, I know I'm way into deal structuring right now, but here's the deal. Realize this. If you're trying to get too much cash flow and too much principal payment, you're going to lose the deal. You're going to get greedy. So let's say you're trying to talk the guy into doing a $400 a month payment, and you're trying to get $400 a month cash flow. That means you're trying to make $800 a month off this property because you got $400 a month principal reduction and $400 in cash flow. So don't get greedy.
Yeah.
It's okay to have less cash flow if you have more principal reduction.
Can you jockey the factors depending on what the person needs?
Yes, you can.
He needs a little more money. He needs more cash flow. Whatever he needs.
Which is why I'm telling you this.
Okay.
Which is why I'm telling you the MAP formula is the maximum allowable offer. So if you paid $800, that means you'd be paying $800 to all principal. I will warn you, heed my advice, that you're going to want to have some cash flow. Because after a while, after a year or two, you're going to get tired of handling this transaction every month and not making anything. Because here's what happened. Even if you make $100, you'll allocate that $100 like, oh, that $100 is what I buy my cigars with. Or that's what I pay my car insurance with. Or that's what I, buy groceries with, or you'll allocate that money to something, and then you'll feel like you're doing that transaction because it's like, well, if I just work on this for an hour, I'll get my groceries.
Yeah.
Or I'll pay my car insurance.
Yeah.
So even if it's a small number, connect it to some bill or something that you're paying, and then you feel like, then you'll start looking forward to it every month. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to get the $100. I'm going to go buy cigars.
Yeah, that's my little condo. It's $100 and something,
right.
But I get $400 principal reduction, and I don't do anything. The phone goes ching, and there's money, and I really don't do anything. I mean, I had to do a few things here and there, but
well, we worked on that together.
Yeah,
and we made sure that we really let the tenant know the rules. I mean, I really.
Yeah, well,
and you were like, that was pretty harsh, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see what happens. She signed the contract, and she pays in advance.
Yeah, way in advance, and she's good. So, yeah, and you just juggle all those factors. If it's a lot of work, you don't do it for cheap.
Right.
If it's not much work, what the heck? I mean, the principal reduction is going to pay off. It's like money in the bank.
Right.
And it's not a stock that can disappear or money that can devaluate. It's a property that's like solid piece of property. You can count on it being there.
All right, so I'm not going to cover this, but I'm just going to let people know that if the market goes down and you still owe this amount of money, you can always renegotiate. and or you can just let the tenant just go extra time until the market readjusts.
Yep.
I don't worry about the market going down.
I was going to say, all the numbers that you do can be adjusted if you have to. You could go back to the seller. Look, you see what's happening. These numbers aren't going to work anywhere. So
I actually had that happen to me one time, and I went back to the seller and I said to him, he lived in Vermont, and we owed him $190,000 on a $300,000 house, and I was trying to sell the property, and I was going to like break even because we sucked like $80,000 or $90,000 out of the house, and my partner didn't remember that mysteriously, right? So, because he was always like that, which is why we're not partners anymore. The point is this.
Which is why I don't do that.
Yeah. The point is this. I went back to the seller, said to him, here's the deal. I owe you $190. Either you take less money or I give you the tenant and you take the payments because I'm done.
And the wording in the contract allows that. You're not bound to anything, so you can just do that.
Yep. Did you get that?
Yeah.
So it's like either you take this much money or I'm going to give you the tenant and you collect the payments and you become the landlord and I'm done.
Yeah, because at that point you're breaking even. You're not making a thing. So why keep doing it?
Or whatever reason. I mean, there were more reasons than that, but I think he took the less money. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I think he took the less money, which, by the way, it wasn't much. It was like $8,000 or something like that. It wasn't like a whole lot.
But it gave you something in your pocket.
Yeah. Well, it cost me from coming out of my pocket.
Okay.
Okay. Which is like putting money in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So people think when they sign a contract, it's in stone and they're going to go to deathbed with it. The best thing you can do is communicate. If you know how to communicate well and you can talk to somebody and you come up with an idea, you can come up with some sort of an agreement.
Well, you wrote the first piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
You can write another piece of paper.
Right. Okay, so this strategy, when done correctly, lets us make some awesome cash flow and create wealth. Because it's a great wealth machine. Right? And you don't need to buy one of these a month. You buy one of these a year. After the end of 5 years, you got some deals.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not telling you to go make this your only strategy to buy and sell houses. You know, like I'm a wholesaler. You know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
I only buy free and clear.
Yeah.
Let us know how that works out for you.
I've mailed to those lists. I've done those. We went one time 6 months. I just wanted to do free and clear houses.
Oh.
And I went broke. I couldn't buy enough houses. It took me about a year and a half to get out of trouble because I made that one decision. I just want to do these free and clear houses because I went back and I surveyed my deals and I realized those were the most profitable. So I'm just going to specialize in those. I couldn't do it. I needed to do all the other deals. I needed to mix them up because by the time I got done in that 6 months, I ended up owing like almost $100,000 because it was costing me $16,000 a month to run. So you would think that I wouldn't have done that, but I did. So I ended up instead of just trying to like buy a couple houses and get rid of the debt, I took a little bit of debt out of each house, and it took me like a year and a half to pay it all off. Okay, so this is not a strategy that will do that, but it is definitely a strategy that a flipper doing rehabs and retails does not have. It is definitely one of those strategies that when you find it, they are unbelievable deals. They are the best deals in the toolbox. Okay? So, this is it. This is the end of my series of the 7 deals. Because we've covered the slot deal, we've covered the option deal, we've covered the rent-to-own lease option deal, we've covered the getting the deed subject to deal. We've covered the rehab retail and wholesale deals, and we just covered the free and clear deal. So I think we've done, I think we started at episode, I forgot what episode, let me see here. I think we started at episode 189 or 190. Yeah. So we've covered all 7 of the deal structures. What I'm going to do next week is actually pretty miraculous. So episode 195 is going to be one of those podcasts that is going to change a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start showing you how to find these sellers. But I'm going to break it down to a very finite point. The reason why I'm going to do this is because I have a couple coaching clients and I need to help. And it's either I do a private recording and do all this stuff just for a handful of guys, or I do it on a podcast. So I've decided to do it on a podcast. So in the interim, I would like for you to go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Check out my site. You can go to free stuff. There's a bunch of free stuff there. You can go to courses. There's a bunch of cheap courses there, $30, $40, $50, $100 courses. But most important, it says podcast on the top. Go to podcast or go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/podcast and please give us a review. It says review. Okay? And that's it. Thanks for listening. We're over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.